This is the Purple and Gold 20 with Matt Musso, where we talk all things LSU sports. Presented by Patient Plus Urgent Care. Visit them at patientplusuc.com. Get in, get better at Patient Plus Urgent Care.
And welcome in. LSU has evened their record to 1-1 on the season after a 34-7 victory Saturday night in Death Valley over the McNeese State Cowboys. It was a night where LSU set out to really quell a lot of the issues and a lot of the narratives that followed them and plagued them in week number 1. In some instances, they did that. In others, those issues reared their ugly head once again and really, I think, left the majority of the fan base not feeling as confident as they would have liked after what basically is a glorified scrimmage or a stat game for LSU normally against an FCS opponent. We'll dive into all of it and get you set for another week as the Tigers prepare for their third game of the season this Saturday against Central Michigan. But first, we remind you about Patient Plus Urgent Care. PatientPlusUC.com. Get in, get better at Patient Plus Urgent Care. 7 convenient locations all across the Baton Rouge area. All of them open 7 days a week. All of them open 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Rapid COVID testing is available there at all of the clinics. Get in and get your test. Help us combat the fourth surge of COVID-19 here in Louisiana. Scratches, sniffles, broken bones, stitches. Patient Plus Urgent Care. PatientPlusUC.com for more information. Get in, get better at Patient Plus Urgent Care. Here's Coach O Saturday night after the win.
We won the game. Very pleased with our defensive performance. Not pleased with the last touchdown on the screen. Very pleased with our pass rush. And I knew we were a good pass rushing team, but obviously we won't face stiffer opponents down the road. On offense, we couldn't get it going for a while, but we hung in there. We tried to get the run game going outside. We had several offensive linemen that were out, but we had a variety of runs, speed sweeps, tosses, counters, outside. We still had some protection problems. We need to look at it, whether it's personnel or whether it's scheme. We need to fix it because people are still going to come after us. But overall, we're pleased with the win. I thought from game 1 to game 2, we made a jump in a lot of areas, and now we need to take this next jump next week in a lot of areas.
I think that quote kind of sums up what we said to start the show here. They did improve in some areas, but ultimately probably really not enough for anyone to really gain any more confidence in this team. But again, look, we spent the whole week talking about that. You weren't ever really going to learn anything about LSU Saturday night because they were going up against a team that is just outmanned. But it was far from a perfect evening in Death Valley. So you heard Coach O there. He harped on protection. And look, if you're watching the game, it wasn't hard to see that is one of the major issues for LSU. You saw it last week. You saw it again this week. Now, yes, you do have to account you're without 3 of your starting offensive linemen, but grain of salt because those 3 guys were in there against UCLA, and it wasn't good. Now, I will say if you have those 3 guys in there against McNeese State, it probably does look a little bit better. You had some backups in that hadn't got a lot of playing time, and they really struggled against honestly an inferior front, which is disappointing. But it's not disappointing because of what happened Saturday night. It's disappointing because one of the big narratives has been you have to get those guys developed so they can get on the field, so you can build some kind of a 2-deep, some type of rotation up front along your offensive line for in-game, but also for injuries like this. How would any of us feel right now if Florida's coming into town and you have 1 or 2 injuries on the offensive line and those guys are going in the game? You wouldn't feel very good. So it was disappointing more for long-term, at least for me, in this game because, man, it's been the conversation with, guys 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 on the offensive line really for the last 3 years is why aren't they coming along? Why aren't they developing? And why aren't they ready to play when called upon? And after the game, Coach O admitted they weren't ready and they missed those three starting guys.
Against UCLA, we turned out protection, and it didn't work. So we had 5-0 man-on-man. And, I thought that those guys could block the rushers from McNeese. We had a plan with number 40. He'd be doubled every time, Chip. But I'm assuming that we got beat one-on-one. We need to see. Now, some of those guys were second-team guys and didn't have a lot of experience, but I need to see the film to see who was getting beat. Obviously getting Austin Deckler's back, Cam Wire back, Chason Hines back, Anthony Bradford back. Next week we're going to be better.
They're going to have to be better. And it's good that you hear him say you'll get those three guys back next week. Because Central Michigan, while LSU will be favored in the game, probably by 2 scores, LSU is more talented top to bottom, all of that. After everyone here saw how LSU performed week 1, and you saw Central Michigan go in to Como and give Missouri all they wanted, I think everybody's ears perked up a little bit around here and kind of looked at week 3 like, okay, LSU's not just going to be able to cakewalk through that one like we all thought when the schedule came out. We have all week to talk about that, though. Let's stick a little bit more with Saturday night. And we mentioned there were some good things on offense, and we'll get to it. But as a whole on the night, only 306 yards of total offense for LSU. They did not pass for 200. They did not run for 200. It was a very frustrating night as a whole on that side of the ball. And Coach O was asked, you saw some flashes from guys in camp. Is he surprised to see the offense struggling this much, given what he saw in camp?
You know what? A little bit, yes. A little bit. I thought, but we had some protection problems going against our defensive line in some scrimmages. And we changed the protection one scrimmage and put a tight end in the back end there. So we've been trying several things. We want to get our athletes in space, but it's just not working. So we're going to have to look at it again. And it's all going to be about protection first. Whether it's a tight end in the back, whether it's sliding the line, whatever it may be, we have to change it.
Really, since that UCLA game, Coach O has talked a lot about the protection hurting the scheme and forcing them to kind of change their offensive scheme, going to a little bit more max protect or so. And you heard him kind of referencing there again. We have to look and see what's happening because it's going to be about protection first. And I think you're already seeing that. LSU, Max Johnson averaged 6 yards an attempt on Saturday night passing the ball. There was no downfield passing game because they didn't have time to throw the ball. Once Nussmeier went in there, the team average dropped below 4.9 yards per attempt between two quarterbacks on Saturday night. LSU had 3 runs of over 20 yards, and everyone who carried the football still averaged 3.5 yards a carry. And you had, Kiner, Ty Davis-Price, Goodwin, Williams, and Trey Palmer, all of them recorded, and Max Johnson, all of those guys had positive yards on the night. Nussmeier had the -5 because of a sack, but the majority of your guys had positive yards, and it was still 3.5 yards a carry with 3 runs of 20 yards. So you are seeing changes in the scheme already because of protection, and especially in the passing game. Now, we did say there were some good signs on offense. They felt few and far between, but they were good. Let's start with the 3 runs of 20 or more yards. Corey Kiner had a 23-yard run. Ty Davis-Price had a 21-yard run. Armani Goodwin had a 21-yard run. Now, look, Armani Goodwin and Corey Kiner, I was incredibly impressed with the 2 young backs. The first time getting to see both of them, Kiner was your leading rusher. 56 yards and a touchdown. Goodwin showed all the explosiveness that we had heard about. The first time he touches the ball, he goes off left tackle and gets outside for his 21-yard gain. Now, he would end up coming up a little limp after hurting his ankle, and you didn't see him much after that because, look, he missed the first game with injury. There's no reason to hurt somebody who has that much explosiveness. Armani Goodwin is exactly what you want in that offense. He can get out on the edge. He's got good hands out of the backfield. Man, right down to the number 22, he kind of looks like Clyde Edwards-Helaire out there. And Corey Kiner showed all that type of. You remember when Kiner first got to LSU and they weren't really wowed, and then they put the pads on him and they started hitting each other in practice, and that's when Corey Kiner finally started to really show he was the Mr. Football from the state of Ohio. You saw the potential. But overall, the protection and run blocking, it just was not good enough to sustain it. You give them credit for those runs. They get all the credit in the world for the 23-yarder and the 221-yarders. You can't take those away. But when you add those into that total, it shows you how bleak the rest of the night was. Now, a good thing about the run game is you did see more diverse runs. You saw them get to the outside. You saw the speed sweep with Trey Palmer. You saw them trying to get the ball in different guys' hands, different ways in the running game, something you heard about all week. You finally did get to see it. Now, will that go forward? I'm hoping so, and here's hoping with a better success rate, especially if you get Deculus and Wire and Hines back. Now, again, those guys have to improve. With Max Johnson, he didn't turn the football over this week. 3 touchdown passes, no interceptions. In fact, LSU as a whole, they did not turn the football over this week. That is absolutely 100% a positive. I thought Trey Palmer had another really nice game. Only 3 catches, 30 yards, but did have a touchdown. It was the first touchdown of the game that LSU scored. A little post route over the middle of the field into the south end zone. You saw some short passes to tight ends. You saw some big plays to Jack Besh. The one thing you still didn't really see was throwing the ball to the running backs, and that's something I would like to see come back. Only 2 catches again by the running backs. Ty Davis Price had one that went for 21 yards. Josh Williams had the other one, and it only went for 1 yard. So that's something I would still like to see put back more into this offense, and I think with Armani Goodwin, if he can stay healthy, you have a massive weapon in that part of the game. 2 more touchdown catches for Kayshon Boutte. Look, he's on another level, but 5 total for 31 yards. And Coach O, after the game, said that's not good enough. And you'll remember after the UCLA game when Kayshon Boutte had 9 catches for 148 yards and 3 touchdowns, Coach O still said, we need to get him the ball more, and that sentiment was once again echoed Saturday night.
Well, Kayshon's important to us, and, man, I'm on the sideline wanting to get him the ball. I want to get him the ball. We ran a speed, but we need to get more balls, so we need to get more passes. So we got to find out why we're not, what's going on, and he's got to get more catches.
And specifically, I'd like to see LSU get him the ball earlier. It took them a while to find him against UCLA, and they maybe found him a little earlier Saturday, but not nearly as often. They do have to kind of find that sweet spot. He's the best player on offense for LSU. It's not even particularly close, and that's not really to the surprise of anybody. I think we all knew that going into this season that would be the case. The guy had 300 yards receiving in one game last year. Everybody knew, okay, number 1 is special, and Coach O wants some more touches for him, and you know what? I think everybody at LSU, every LSU fan as well, is in full agreement with that. One more on offense. We did get our first look at Garrett Nussmeier. The stats don't really tell the story. I thought Garrett had some nice moments. There were some drops along the way for Garrett Nussmeier there. It's just, man, look, he was put into a tough situation. Won the game was well in hand, so you really weren't going to be able to tell anything. But I think everyone's heard so much about what the plays he was making in camp. Maybe you expected some of the big plays for him to get out there and make it. That didn't necessarily happen, but again, not all his fault. I remember, look, he had the one deep ball down the sideline. It was a really good ball. It just they couldn't connect. So he was definitely taking the shots and attempting to make the plays you had heard about. They just weren't there and just couldn't connect. But Coach O, after the game, did say it was a nice debut for Garrett Nussmeier.
Good in spots. The guy's been phenomenal at practice. Phenomenal. I think he did very well. Didn't make the big plays like I thought he would, but I think he was running for his life some of the time. A couple of times his passes were dropping, but I thought he did very good, and I would have no problem putting Garrett in if something happened with Max.
There you go. The end of that quote should quell any type of, if there's going to be any air quotes, controversy with the quarterbacks. It's Max Johnson's job, and But, if something were to happen, they feel comfortable with Garrett. And I think you saw flashes Saturday night as to why. On defense is where you saw the most good from LSU. We talked about, again, you won't learn a lot. McNeese is inferior. You go out there, you dominate. Defense is where you did that the most. The defense played the game LSU as a whole kind of wanted to play against McNeese State. I mean, they were under 100 yards total offense at halftime. LSU lived in the backfield. You saw a pass rush just really take advantage of a weaker opponent. LSU had 8 sacks and 3 more quarterback hurries. They had 16 tackles for a loss. Mason Smith announced his presence with authority on Saturday night. You saw him flash a couple times against UCLA. Mason Smith was second on the team in tackles, led your team in sacks with 3, and had 3.5 more tackles for loss. And as you might expect, Coach O had high praise for his freshman sensation post-game.
You know what? I thought he rushed the passer very good the first game. I don't know if you guys noticed it. He had some very good one-on-one rushes. And then again tonight, he dominated his man. He had 3 sacks. Mason is a tremendous rusher, especially inside. He's very athletic for a guy that's 6'5", a great young player for us.
Andre Anthony had another very active game, 2.5 sacks. You saw B.J. Ojolari come up with another sack. I thought Cordell Flott flashed at times, really kind of all over the field as well. Major Burns had a better night. And overall, you saw guys just in the right spot really all night long. And that's kind of what you wanted most of all, was for LSU and the communication and all of that to be clicking against an opponent that you're supposed to dominate. And ultimately, they did that on defense. I mean, look, McNeese State, we told you they were under 100 yards total offense at the half. They only finished with 142. You held an opponent under 150 yards. That's solid. I mean, that's great. That's what you wanted, and you saw it. Now, does that mean LSU's defensive problems are fixed and it's all going to be roses from here on out? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But step one is at least doing it, and they did do it. They still have plenty to improve on. I know when they gave up the long touchdown at the end there, and Coach O wasn't pleased with that. He even mentioned it in one of the bites that we played there. But while you're not going to learn anything, really, ultimately, it is a step in the right direction. And one more time, we'll remind you about Patient Plus Urgent Care, patientplusuc.com. Get in, get better at Patient Plus Urgent Care. 7 convenient locations across the Baton Rouge area. They have them everywhere. South Downs, there's one in Prairieville, there's one in Bocage, there's one on Plank Road. They're everywhere in the Baton Rouge area. And they're all open 7 days a week, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. It's Patient Plus Urgent Care. Get in and get better. Scratches, sniffles, broken bones, flu symptoms, cold symptoms, stitches. Patient Plus Urgent Care. PatientPlusUC.com. We told you rapid COVID testing is still available. Patient Plus Urgent Care. Get in and get better. That wraps it up. Tigers beat the Cowboys 34-7. Coach O will meet with the media later today as they recap that, put a button on recapping that game and begin to preview the next opponent, the Central Michigan Chippewas, who come into Tiger Stadium this Saturday, 6:30 kickoff for that game. It will be on the SEC Network. We will recap what Coach O had to say for you tomorrow on the Purple and Gold 20.